Okay, while we're getting ready for Instagram to catch up to us, I'm going to slurp my coffee. No, I
Don't
won't.
don't slurp it. Sip it. Don't slurp it.
Sip it. Or tell you what, I'll do something next better. Okay, it's Sunday, and welcome to what we now call the Windy City of Florida, Tampa, along with Sarasota, Venice, Punta Gorda, Fort Myers. Let's see. Oh yes, Bradenton. Gotta forget Bradenton. Let's see now. We also got Apalachicola. Cue the word. Cue the music.
Sorry.
See, that is where you're supposed to kick in the music.
In my soul, you're a corner in my heart.
And
I, I
Perry.
I don't know what it is. I haven't been able to like get us to go live on Instagram for a little while.
Oh, really?
But there's something
This
wrong
is
with the
a bit of
channel,
fraud.
and I was just messing with it, and I have to listen to you slurp your coffee. And
I didn't do it actually this morning, so
Jesus Christ.
anyways, first off, I want to welcome all you here today, because anybody who has survived the storm and sitting there in front of a TV set or a monitor that allows you to watch this right now and still has power, more power to you. That's a pun. Anyways, we're hoping that everybody is safe from the storm. It was quite a deal, and unfortunately, the fatalities are racking up as they peel off the layers of damage and see what went on. So whatever they tell you to evacuate, guys, evacuate. I did find it interesting that our governor this time was constantly in front of the cameras in a suit and tie. Now, generally, you have a governor who's in his working clothes, as in non-working at the Capitol. Unfortunately, we had to deal with years and years of Rick Scott in his polo shirt and Navy cap. I have my Navy cap, but I wasn't going to wear it in deference to Tom because I'm not really military. But I just did it. I always do it to piss off Rick Scott. But here we have our governor, pristine in his suit and tie. Like, I'm not going out to help you guys. I'll just sit here and talk about it, kind of
Was
thing. I'm
he
not going to be
wearing
on the ground.
was he
That's the way
wearing
it is.
boots with high heels?
No, he was wearing Louisiana style shrimping boots. If you're from Louisiana, you recognize those very, very carefully. But he did wear them like go-go boots. I got to tell you, I think they did have heels on them. At
The
least,
white Dallas Cowboy cheerleader looking boots that he wore that one photo out was just pure classic.
well, they did have 2-inch block heels, very sensible. But I don't think it's exactly the look he was going for. But we do have two folks here today from Orange County. Now, Orange County, for those of you who are not from Florida, is not based on the name of our former president's spray tan. Okay, it's based on the actual crop that they grow around there. And Orange County, actually, at one point in time, was considered to be a site for the capital, but they decided to stick it with Tallahassee, in part because it's far enough away from any major city to allow more things to go on that might be questionable, especially in the days before heavy duty media like we have today. Tom, can you switch around your camera there? You're not mirrored, so your publicity sign is backwards.
No idea how to do it. You're talking to the technology challenged here. I'll, I'll
In
work
the
on it
settings
for
thing below you there, it does say mirror image. So if you
It,
can go to the little
it's all right. If
pocket.
you got to go to Tom Keen's website, there's his caption. So
Okay, so first off, on the left hand side, we have not Neek. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom Keene. Now I pronounced it the other right way. We were very happy to help get into the representativeship of District 35, a district that we flipped along with the rest of us, rest of the state, and we're going to do more.
by the
And
way, Tom, we're completely taking credit for that. You
well, you
coming
should.
on this
Absolutely.
podcast flipped that entire district.
You guys were my second endorser after Vote Vets. You were number 2, so you helped me get started. So there you go. And I am proud to represent House District 35, and you can see the map behind me there, even if it is flipped, I guess, mirrored. I've got Orange and Osceola County. I don't have the the attraction side of Orange County, which Gary, you didn't mention, but that's basically the Disney and Universal Studios and Gatorland and SeaWorld area that's to the west of Orange County. But I have a lot of the populated side on the east side, and then in south Osceola County, a lot of agriculture and ranching business. So there's not a lot of folks in the southern part of the district. So it's pretty large. It's about 80 miles from north to south. Takes a couple hours to travel. So I'm excited to represent the district, as I have done now since this past January. Again, thanks to you guys.
And it has a different set of difficulties that the area that does contain the amusement parks does. And I'm not talking about Dinosaur World, what they're worrying about the foam heads coming off the dinosaurs at 20 feet high. But the Reedy Creek district being undistricted and having a totally sane system that was working well for that area to be dismantled and put in more cronies, which is just such a Florida thing to do.
Yeah.
Take something that makes certain it doesn't quite work well, as long as your friends are running it.
And it's taken a couple of years for them to mess it up. I don't know what the status is specifically right now, but it's not called Reedy Creek anymore. It's a Central Florida. I don't even know the name. I'm going to be calling
Vacation
it
district, something along those lines.
Yeah, I'm going to be calling it Reedy Creek and people are going to scratch their head and wonder what I'm saying. But yeah.
Well, that was the district that Disney set up so they would be autonomous and be able to handle all their own fire, police, all the other utilities that normally our tax dollars handle, and hand over that bill to Orange County instead, who has some people living in hotels.
Yeah, many of the HOAs that are in the state of Florida, which they're everywhere, right, also have a CDD or community development district. So it's not unsimilar to the things that are already occurred in the state of Florida. So my CD, for example, adds a couple $1,000s to my tax bill, and it went to pay off bonds they used to build the streets. So it's not uncommon. And so that was the other thing that was a little bit of a misnomer. They made it sound like this was a one-off good deal for Disney, and in fact, it was a good deal for the residents, because then we don't, as you pointed out, we don't have to pay the tax on all that infrastructure that we put in place.
And Disney, because of the nature of the people they have coming here from all over the world, have a lot of traffic issues because they have people who normally are in cities or countries where you usually use mass transit. You don't use cars, but they rent a car to come over here, and they're driving those streets, and they don't even know what side of the street to be on. And for that time, and that's why you see a lot of accidents, people hitting buses, people hitting folks on bicycles and things of that sort in that district. But I digress. Now, to your right, our left, actually. Why don't I just introduce ourselves first? That's probably better. My name is Gary Stein. I'm your political director of SUncoast NORML and our master of public health. To my right, no, to my left, you're right, is our deputy director, our master of business administration, and the owner of Chillum with 2 dispensaries in Ybor and St. Pete. Carlos Armida.
Thank you.
By the way, how did your store fare over in St. Pete?
Perfectly fine. I was worried because we've got like a small leak in the roof, and nothing leaked, nothing flooded, nothing happened. So we're good.
Yeah, Central Avenue, you have a lot of pretty solid buildings out that way.
Yeah, but the drainage in that area is not that great. There's been times when the front of the store has flooded a little bit just with a normal rainstorm. So, I mean, it's concerning. Flooding in that area is very concerning.
And who, by the way, does the insurance for that area? Do you own that property or you're leasing it?
I'm leasing it. Okay,
so you don't know who actually has the insurance policy for that area.
I mean, I've got like insurance for my company. I'm not like an insurance whiz or anything like that.
Gotcha.
But I do have a thing called hurricane insurance for my business in St. Pete.
My guess is it's probably Citizens, that lovely group that Jimmy Petronas tends to run sometimes. That doesn't help people out especially after a major hurricane. And on my left, you're right. Coming to us from Maryland, I don't know what that picture is behind you, but it's hilarious, is our executive director who lives in the Beltway where he hits them below the Beltway, Chris Cano.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Yeah, that's some of my wife's original artwork there that she's decorated our home with. So, and excuse me for looking like hell this morning, but having a 3-month-old, your sleep patterns become very irritated and broken up when they want to eat every 2 hours. So,
Just so you know, I didn't notice any difference.
Yeah, that's the way you look to me, man.
It works for me. And in the right hand corner, in the secret square, is our other guest, who actually is a second time guest because he came on when he just got started with his campaign about a year or so ago, long before anybody else thought about it, which shows this guy is proactive with a capital P. Nate Douglas, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm so glad to be back on the show. Fantastic to be back on. And I see that Tom flipped the camera around, so yay, Tom. So now we could see the sign. It says Tom Keene, but I'm representing the East
Hey, I'm
Side
sorry,
League.
your background's backwards. Would you mind flipping it around for?
Yes.
I think
won't
they
ask
have
why
the most boring background in McCall too. So
you're in a void. And speaking of your district, no, I'm serious. What district? What is District 37? Where does it entail? And who can vote for you when it comes time for that ballot to be initiated?
yeah, so House District 37 has in the Central Florida area, it has the east part of Winter Park. It goes down to near the county line between Orange and Brevard. We have UCF, University of Central Florida, right at the heart of the district. It is one of the largest college campuses in the country. And then we have parts of Seminole County as well. So for those folks who live in Oviedo and Chiliota and a very small sliver of Geneva, they could also vote for me as well. Start to vote. And I'm going to throw out real quickly that early voting starts on October 21st and ends on November 3rd in Orange and Seminole counties. And vote by mail ballots went out on the 26th. So.
And it's interesting that they call that early voting when there's only approximately a week and a half before the actual election. It seems like a misnomer. I mean, there are people right now who are early voting in states like North Carolina, New Hampshire, and other places right now.
Right. There are folks who are voting super early right now in Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, I believe. Interesting to see that, but here it starts a bit later.
I mean, there are states who actually have entirely all online voting or mail-in voting, things of that sort. But then again, those are also areas that have things like canyons and mountains and things of that sort, where people have a hard time getting to the polls. So it works out very, very well for them. Florida, you don't really have an excuse not to be able to get to a poll, no matter how hard they have tried to make it to vote for you. It is not hard to either pay vote early on time or drop off your ballot if you cannot trust the post office. God bless Mr. Joy. He should fry in hell before and after he gets there. But it is time to vote. And now your district 37, that used to be part of Carlos Guillermo Smith's district, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So it has the old portion that Carlos Guillermo Smith represented on the Orange County side, and then they added on Seminole County as well, which is a purple area.
Yeah, Seminole is an interesting area. Oviedo, those areas there. It's really kind of hard to gauge the vote. And do the students all have votes?
Oh, yeah.
Even though they're at UCF and may have come from other parts of the state and the country?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's the thing about living in Carlando, right? Like that's what I call it. You have to drive everywhere to get anywhere. That's one part about living in the city. I mean, students who go UCF, a lot of them are driving to campus. So Tom, for instance, has students in his district. Now, obviously, my district would have the bulk of them, and we have them sitting right in front of UCF. And then we also do have a lot of students who live out on the Oviedo side as well. So that is very common.
The good thing is that UCF has an early voting location, so students can just walk basically across campus and vote during those periods that we just talked about the 2 weeks prior. So that's fantastic, and applaud the previous supervisor of elections for making sure that there was a location on campus for those students and faculty members as well.
Exactly.
So one thing that stands out,
It's wide open.
one thing that stands out having both of you on the show is you guys are in that central Orlando area. And one thing that I found out marketing my company, Chillum, I don't know if you guys are aware, but I own Chillum Mushroom and Hemp Dispensary
I've
in
heard
New
about
York
that.
City, Florida. I don't say that much on the show, but one thing that I've learned from marketing my company is I get a lot of hits on my website from Orlando. Do you think it might, which tells me there's a lot of people in Orlando that like marijuana and mushrooms. So I'm wondering, like, why do you guys think that is? Is it because of all the students from UCF, or do you think Orlando is just generally a more liberal area in Florida that, you know, tends to lean that way, or what is that? What is it about Orlando?
I think what he's asking is why is it that Orange County has the Fringe Festival and nobody else does?
You know, I think I'm gonna take a shot at this. I think there's numerous reasons why. I think I mean the first reason, we have a lot of tourists in Orlando, of course, who are visiting attractions. So they're into various different substances and various different things that make them feel good. And then we have a bunch of college students around the area who obviously I would say cannabis and shrooms are popular amongst the college crowd. And then I would say in Orlando, I mean, I think, you know, out of all of Florida, we have the coolest people. So I think that's first and foremost. Actually,
We all know that UCF is one of the largest in the country, the universities, right? I mean, there's 50,000 plus students.
I didn't know that.
It's huge. Second largest.
I'm a USF graduate, so I think we beat UCF and everything. So I'm gonna have to
UCF has a fantastic football team.
exactly.
One of the things that Orange County has that a lot of other people don't have is a high concentration of the arts. I'm not saying there isn't a lot of high concentration in St. Pete. I love all the things that happen over at Ruth Eckerd Hall. I just wish they had more jazz concerts down there besides that one that cost like $50 to sit for a couple of days. It used to be free once upon a time. But the problem I have right now, and it really concerns me, is that Orange County, which is a center of culture for the state, had their culture budget essentially zeroed out by the previous legislature. Is that something you're running on to try to recover and maintain for your district?
Well, the first thing let me make a small correction here. It wasn't the legislature that zeroed it out. The legislature put a bill in. They did reduce it from previous years, which I thought was a tragedy by itself. But it was the governor that vetoed the arts bill. And so it lands squarely at his feet. And we were just talking about his boots earlier, so I don't know.
Well, you have to make fun of his boots because he doesn't have one of those handlebar mustaches that he can do this bit with.
Exactly. So
those are really fashionable boots that he's using to stump out the arts.
I envision Ron DeSantis listening to Nancy Sinatra as he puts those boots on in the morning.
So let's put the blame where it belongs, right? And it does belong with the governor's veto pen. So just to set the record straight on that. And clearly, I think Orlando will continue to lead the state in cultural activities, again, because of all those tourists that come. We double our population daily with all of the tourists that are here. We had, I think, 68 million, I think, tourists that came to Orlando regional, Central Florida area. So that averages out to more than 1 million per week. That's a lot of folks here visiting. So let me point out one other thing, just because you mentioned it or asked about it, about the reasons. District 35 also has the Orlando Veterans Administration Medical Center. So the VA hospital is located right here in District 35. And that's one of the reasons why, I originally came out in support of Amendment 3 was because of veterans coming to me, and I'm a Navy vet, coming to me and telling me how important that it had been for them. And so I think maybe the fact that we have 80,000 veterans living in Orange County might also contribute to some of those clicks that you're getting, Carlos. I'm just guessing.
Very cool.
I don't know your marketing plan, but I just guessing.
I've got two questions for you guys. First off, Tom, we spent a little bit of time talking to each other in Tallahassee during the whole hemp bill thing. And we, you being a veteran, right? I really want to see your reaction to this, because it was actually over in the Senate side. Senator Collins kind of chastised the hemp activist community for bringing a lot of veterans to speak against the hemp bill, saying that we were parading veterans around for political gain. I'm wondering how you feel about that. Like, do you think that I was being disrespectful to veterans, or do you think that, we could go about this in a different way, or did we do something wrong, or I don't know?
Well, I don't think that was disrespectful. As a matter of fact, just the opposite. That's the reason why that when you're in the service, you're there for service, but we're there to defend our freedoms. And one of our freedoms is the ability to be able to speak publicly and in a forum like that at Tallahassee. So just the opposite. I think the fact that veterans came up just it just proved a point, right? And so I'd like to see more veterans come out. I'd like to see more veterans run for office. We have a very small caucus now, both bipartisan, and I'd like to see more veterans in public service. I just saw a story here recently that said, if you're a veteran, you seem to be able to work in a more bipartisan way than if you're on one of the extreme, left or right. And I kind of resonate with that. I think it's important. We need to get along. I had yeah.
I'm sorry, that hospital is run by the Veterans Administration, correctly? So it is officially a federal facility?
It is. It is.
Mm-hmm. And so therefore, being a federal facility, is strictly under federal law and not necessarily state law as far as the operations of that hospital.
That is correct. That is correct.
So that must be difficult on a state level to try to preempt any of their policies.
Yeah, I'm not an attorney. Don't play one on TV, so I hesitate to weigh in on the legalities and all the specifics there. But the VA hospital is run by the VA administration, the federal agency. So they write their own rules. And,
on the good side,
they have their own police department there. They have their own campus. And I think we have 7 or 8 VA hospitals, medical centers in the state, if I'm not mistaken. We have one of the largest veteran populations. I think we're number 2 behind Texas. So it's an important demographic here, and I'm proud to serve this district because it's located right here in, literally about 5 blocks from my home.
Well, we want to make certain that our veterans have all the best alternatives for anything they have in regards to pain, in regards to treatment of PTSD, etc. Right. And the federal law it crimps us, and the state law also crimps us. Mm-hmm. Yet the VA is actually leaning a little bit more towards being more open with the ability for vets to be able to utilize it in states where it's legal, like it is here in Florida, medically. Do you see that happening more with Amendment 3?
Yeah,
open it up.
I'll defer to Takano a little bit because of his advocacy in this area, and he's the one that really turned my thinking around on this. I think we have seen that. I think the VA is coming around slowly. I mean, they're a big bureaucracy as well, but I do see some movement there, and I think it's important. I've talked to veterans who say, "Hey, look, I was on 15 or 20 different medications, and I kind of went over and self-medicated, if that's the right word, to medical marijuana, and now I'm no longer on that pharmacy of medication." So I think it's important, and I think doctors are seeing that as well, and I think the VA doctors will also fall into that category here. So change is coming. Change is coming.
Interesting. Somebody wrote. So I saw a lawyer break down the amendment saying that you could apply to grow your own. That is nowhere in this amendment. I'm sorry, it just isn't, and for a very good reason, actually. And that is because we have this ridiculous single topic rule when it comes to ballot initiatives. One of the ways they make things harder for us to get ballot initiatives here in the state of Florida, saying it has to have a single topic, and making it legal for adult use and home grow were 2 separate topics as far as they were concerned. If home grow was in this, it would not be on the ballot. That is plain and simple. So if anybody tells you, "Oh, you can't grow because big," Big
And
We
this is
wrote it
a
that way. No, the Supreme Court of Florida made it so.
this is a common misconception with the way politics work here in Florida, is that a lot of times, in order to strike down a constitutional amendment, it seems like they'll attack the amendment rather than make sure you vote for the right people to make sure that this gets implemented
Yeah.
properly.
Right.
So we get all these great amendments. We're voting for some great things this year. We're voting for adult use. We're voting to strike down the abortion ban. All these different things, but that could all get fucked up if we don't vote for people like Nate and Tom.
Well,
So
marijuana is clearly on more than just Amendment 3. It's up and down the ballot. You need to elect folks that will then implement, and so that's why it's so important to elect Nate and to re-elect me and other folks across the state, so that Tallahassee, gets off their butt.
So Tom, I'm gonna extend this question to you in a minute, but Nate, I see you're eager to talk, and I actually have a question for you. I think it's very important that we spend some time right now at asking our guests what is so important that we implement once we put this amendment forward. So Nate, if you wouldn't mind.
So I really want to hammer something that is really, it's not just an amendment that we're passing, because, I am confident, and I think many of us in this call are confident that Amendment 3 is going to pass with Floridians. But at the same time, if you do not vote for a legislature that implements it properly, and I mean, time and time again, we know that Governor DeSantis does not agree with this amendment. Now, obviously, he has a bigger battle with some other amendments out there, but he does not agree with this amendment. Neither do other Republicans as well. So it's really important that we have folks in the state legislature who are going to make sure that we actually, see what we wanted to vote for, and, the intentions are correct when we're implementing this legislation. Now, something that I would like to see during the implementation, though, and both of you really hit on this as well, which is home grow. I would like to see that. I would like to see that during the implementation. And one of the reasons why is because something I've talked about time and time again when it comes to we can't simply pass Amendment 3 and say, okay, great, recreational marijuana is now legal. What we need to make sure that we actually have a competitive market, that it is not just a market that's hogged up by larger marijuana companies coming in from out. Make sure that everyone has a fair shot in this market, whether that means it's smaller local businesses or whether it's those who are growing their marijuana medicinally at home. We need to make sure that this is something that's competitive. It's not hogged up by large businesses that could just jack up prices for everyday Floridians.
Now, Tom and Nate, when you get into office, you see how confident I am? When you get into office, and you already made it through your primary, that was fantastic. You really got a chance to jump over that and get on to get in the main of things. But when you get into office, we'd be more than happy to help give you some bills that include our home grow bill for you guys to work together on this. I know you only got 6 bills apiece, which really does constrain the House members, but considering how many House members there are, that's in part why they do that. And of course, some of those are strictly funding bills, like it was to revamp the Pulse area and all that kind of stuff. Those are all have to be done by bill, and so therefore that kind of reduces the amount of bills you have. But we do have a home grow bill, and I think that Chris wants to push on that, and also what was going on over at the VA. Correct?
Well, understanding that the Florida legislature, we see it in the comments, about getting a bad rap, but understand the Florida legislature has been dominated for 30 years by the Republican Party of Florida. So, if you want to change things, then you actually have to change for who's sitting in those seats. And so I'm glad that we have Representative Keene, who first attended something that I was teaching to the Democratic Veterans Caucus around, cannabis in Florida and how it's benefiting veterans. And then, of course, Nate, as the next generation stepping up to run for office, understands all too well how the war on drugs has been carried out, targeting certain communities, and how it's been, hurting young people who get arrested and hindering them with criminal records and such. But The fact is that Ron DeSantis and his party have had 7 years to get it right in Florida, and each and every year they're still getting it wrong. They're letting other things like THC caps or attacking the hemp industry suck up all the oxygen in the room. When what we really need in Florida, and this is for you gentlemen to really take a look at, is out of your 6 bills that you're going to get next year, does one of these interest you? Is this something you want to tackle on? But number one, employment protections for medical marijuana patients. People in Florida are still losing their jobs because they've done everything right. They've did all the paperwork. They jumped through all the hoops to get access to these chronic debilitating conditions that they need medical marijuana for. And for some reason, the DeSantis administration and the Florida GOP in the legislature have done nothing to remedy this, to give these folks an opportunity to work and be successful. More than that, you still have medical patients in Florida who are discriminated against in their medical treatments. You have medical marijuana patients who are being kicked off of organ transplant list, who their pain management doctors are telling them, well, I'm going to cut you cold turkey off these opioids or these benzos that you've been taking. And, you're just because, for some reason they don't want them taking medical marijuana. And that's a major concern that folks have. People are getting kicked out of their nursing homes because they're being medical marijuana patients. So there are issues around medical discrimination of medical marijuana patients. There's the employment discrimination issue. There's the fact that just being a medical marijuana patient can be used against you in a custody hearing, or even could cause an investigation into your home of whether or not you're being a good parent. And so there are issues around parental rights and being a medical marijuana patient. And all these things in the free state of Florida that our governor loves to tout are happening to people each and every day. We've even seen extreme cases in other states like South Carolina where women have had to utilize, medical cannabis for intractable nausea during their pregnancies, and then they've had their children taken away and have not seen them years after they've given birth. And these are things that can happen in the free state of Florida if we don't have representatives paying attention to what the people are saying. We get these calls from people every single day. We get the emails, people contact us and say, help us do something about it. And we do. We do our best. We came out and supported Tom. He got elected. I mean, that's really how the process works in a lot of ways. Is we have to engage our elected officials, and we have to mobilize our members to go to Tallahassee. And you heard what Carlos said. When we do show up to Tallahassee, you have other senators and representatives trying to knock down and shoot down what we're attempting to do. And so, Gary touched on it too. We've even written a bill where patients should be able to grow it at a state licensed facility, because we know that the current majority party in the legislature doesn't want anything to do with people being able to grow their own. And so there's a lot of other bills that can be touched on that can benefit the people of Florida when it comes to medical marijuana. The job is not done. And then when you look at, well, now we're going to be transitioning to an adult use state should Amendment 3 pass. And there's a lot of things that still have major issues with the existing system as a market-based system. And Nate, you touched on it. There's a limited number of licenses. The DeSantis administration has put off issuing out over 20 new licenses for over a year now. And then we still have the issues of, the vertical integration. And that you have to, basically be from seed to sale, a one-stop shop. That prevents, other people from getting into this business. That prevents the mom and pop entrepreneurs that make America such a great country.
Yep.
And so we have to really look at breaking up vertical integration, creating an opportunity for growing at home, and really having the opportunity for people to get into this industry. I look at the hemp producers across the state, and I see a group of thousands of people who have been licensed already by the state, essentially, and have been operating in a good faith manner in most cases. And I see, these could be folks like Carlos that could, get licenses to retail. But, when we talked earlier about the fact that there's a large number of folks, Carlos, that are in the Orlando area clicking and looking for your shop, you think about people who come from other states because there's no medical marijuana reciprocity in Florida. And Gary's written a bill that could help out with that, that we could generate revenues for our own tourism industry if people paid a small fee to be able to purchase medical marijuana with their out-of-state cards in Florida. There's so many things that we can do to benefit medical marijuana patients, and so we definitely would love to see you all take a crack at that. So I'm going to get off my soapbox and let you candidates get on yours, but I wanted to really lay it out, because every time we have a candidate on the show, I think it's important for them to know what we're hearing from the people.
Yes.
And I want to add on that one bill that I'm working on right now, which will probably get finished hopefully in time for committee week, and that is a bill to break the verticals. It's based on the Brandis language that he put together in 2015, 2016, 2017 to make certain we didn't have vertical integrated businesses, because the average person needs $40 to $50 million to start a business that way. And that's not the average person, at least not that I know of, unless like maybe you live over in Marco Island or something like that, or Avila. But there's some neighborhoods around Orange County that are for millionaires only, aren't there? Like the one where John Morgan lives. Just saying, he's got a beautiful home. It's a half a block long, but he's got a beautiful home.
If you guys would just go with me for a moment, I'd like to play a little background music, if we could, just a little love music here, because I want to dream. I want to dream of a Florida. I don't know how fucking that music is, but I want to dream of a Florida where people from, I don't know, some far away land, let's say Alaska, come to Orlando and want to visit, all the great tourism that we have, Universal, Disney, Legoland, whatever it is. Fuck it. Downtown Orlando is just a beautiful place. You should just go visit downtown Orlando.
Absolutely.
But imagine if you could do that, and you could go to a wonderful establishment, say Chillum Cannabis Dispensary.
And Mushroom Dispensary.
Cannabis and legal mushroom dispensary. I don't know.
Legal mushroom dispensary,
magic mushroom law passed yet, but legal mushroom law passed. And you could go and you can safely purchase your cannabis at one of these places, and then go and enjoy all the beautiful shit that Florida has to offer. It would be so great if the tourists that come to the state wouldn't have to be like looking over their shoulder all the time. You know what I mean? Or, doing something illegal when they get here. I would really appreciate, being able to grow at home. And I think that's a huge concern for this business. But I think the main criticism against Amendment 3 is that it comes from True Leave, that people are scared that just because it comes from True Leave, that it's going to completely lock the business. You know what I mean? So I would like to see a bill like that come out before anything else.
Carlos, I'm glad you mentioned about locking the business, because this is an unforeseen consequence that is going to require a legislative fix. Currently, our amount of licenses that essentially determine how many operators are in the Florida marijuana industry is tied to our patient count. Well, if we move to an adult use state, we're probably going to see a drop in patient counts, because there are people who don't want to spend $200 and $300 every 7 months on a doctor's recommendation. They're just going to want to walk in and show their ID. Now, granted, they're going to lose the tax benefits of not paying taxes on their cannabis, because obviously adult use cannabis is going to be taxed and medicine in Florida is not taxed. But some people are willing to make that trade-off. I know a lot of veterans who are paranoid about being on a government list.
And on the list. They don't want to be on the list. Yep.
Exactly. And by all means, they're not wrong, because currently you can lose or be disqualified from security clearance or a federal job for cannabis use. Now the Doobie Act did pass in the last week, through the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee. That's called the Dismantling Outdated Obstacles and Barriers to Individual Employment, the Doobie Act. But the fact is that it hasn't passed the Senate, it hasn't passed the House, and cannabis is still a Schedule I drug federally. So there's a lot of major concerns around veterans, around people being on list. If you're going to become a new citizen in this country, taking medical marijuana and having a card could cause you to not get your citizenship. There's a lot to be concerned about with the current gray area that is, the cannabis industry. And so I think it's important that we point those out for folks, and that there is going to need to be a legislative fix. And I know, Tom, you're already there and you're ready to get going. I mean, you're trying to fix the issues with our insurance industry. You want to fix the issues, that we're seeing around cannabis. And Nate, I know you get all this stuff because, your generation has really, seen how the elected officials in Florida just haven't been there and been in touch. And, Tom is one of the exceptions in all of this, and so that's why we want to make sure he goes back there, and then he's going to have support for you as a neighboring district to do the same. So again, I'm going to get off my soapbox and pass the football in y'all's court. So just Nate, tell me what you're thinking as far as, legislation or what's something that you'd like to champion, after hearing all this today.
There's so much that we need a champion. Really, at the end of the day, we have so many issues in Florida. Ranging from, we have the most expensive property insurance in the country. We have many folks who don't even have access to medical care because it's just so expensive in the state of Florida. And that's something that you were talking about that I think is such a great point. So many folks don't even have access to be able to even get a medical marijuana card. And then I have many folks that I know who would love to get one, but know that if they do, they can't get security clearance at certain levels if they were to go into a job with the federal government. So I think there's so many things that are important. And at the end of the day, legislation that I would be focused on, obviously so much more, but some legislation I would love to see coming out of Tallahassee would be making sure that we expunge criminal records from those who were using marijuana before, who were out there selling as well, because at the end of the day, we shouldn't have a bunch of folks who move into the state. Larger companies, again, like this is something that's a big deal to me. We shouldn't have a bunch of larger companies moving in from out of state, selling marijuana legally, having the law on their side, while so many others are still in prison or can't get a job, or they don't even look at their resumes when they're applying for jobs because they're out there doing the same exact thing during this time when it's not legal. So, there's so many things, there's so many potential legislation that we need to look at when it comes to recreational marijuana. It is not simply passing Amendment 3, because this is a complicated issue that's having real impacts on people's lives all across the state.
Dude, that's such a good point, Nate. Like, could you imagine sitting in a prison in Florida and say you got arrested for selling large amounts of marijuana in 2023? They legalized in 2024, right? All of a sudden, people are going to Disney World and getting super stoned in 2025, and you're still there in a cell. That'd be crazy.
It's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Now, I got to tell you that Florida, the way that the House works is very interesting. Randus, if I can quote him again, once said that the Senate works like a bunch of 40 Somalian warlords. They all work in their own directions and things of that sort. But when it comes to the House, it's all very much top down, almost like the military. In fact, you don't get a chance to make your own decisions if you like. Now,
well, at least on the Republican side.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because on the minority side, which is the Democrats right now, you get a little bit more leeway. Although I've been told that as a freshman, they tell you to kick back and watch for a while and don't actually do anything unless they give you a nugget to work on, kind of thing. But I'd like to see somebody actually hit the ground running as opposed to hit the ground waiting, because we have so much to do.
Well, Barry, I got to tell you, I hit the ground running, and I think I accomplished a lot in my first session. So we need more folks like Nate to do exactly that as well, and we can make some change. It's not, look, I think a lot of folks, and I've been reading the comments, I think a lot of folks think it just, hey, we elect Tom and we elect Nate, and they go up and they can't get it accomplished. They obviously failed, right? And I don't look at it that way. This is a process. We have got to go up there. We've got to work hard for our constituents, and then we've got to get other like-minded colleagues elected as well. And until we do that, it's not, we're not going to have change. And so we've seen this over and over again, where the citizens of Florida vote on a constitutional amendment, and then it comes up to the House, and roadblock after roadblock is thrown down by the Republican majority. So we've got to make inroads there, and it is hard work. And I'm ready to go up and do that hard work.
We work pretty much as a bipartisan group here. We've had a lot of GOPs on. We had Nancy Mason and Brandis. We even had Joe Gruters on a couple of weeks ago.
Yep, that was a great interview, by the way. And I would reach across the aisle to work with Senator Gruters on this, tomorrow.
That is one of the things I was asking about. Are you guys willing to go ahead and make that leap? Because they have to see you guys make that leap for them to be able to have the guts to make the leap on the other side as well, because they're going to get pressure from above. And
I'm absolutely ready to go reach across the aisle with Senator Gruters. And we saw Senator Jones, Democrat, come out with an ad, and those two rarely see eye to eye, right? Senator Jones is a little shorter than Senator Gruters, so another pun there, right? But having said that, I mean, the fact that they came together on Amendment 3 is amazing, and it's just a testament to how important it is for Amendment 3 to pass. And in Florida, we've got to get past that 60% threshold, and I think that's always a tough one, right? You got to really work it. But as long as we get the word out and we're communicating with voters, I think it will pass.
Well, I think it does send a signal to the folks in the legislature that if something passes by more than 60%, it's a bipartisan issue, assholes. You have to understand that
I'm not going to call my colleagues an asshole. I'm not going to do that.
I'm talking about the people who are being negative, the people you're trying to woo over.
Exactly.
Send them some of these lemon empanadas that I get over at Bravo. No, it's not a fruit pie. It's a lemon empanada. I got it at Bravo. Anyways, we need to go ahead and make certain that we get more bipartisan efforts. I have seen the Democrats attempt it in years past and get brushed off because they say, no, we want to have THC caps, things of that sort, so you're going to vote for that. We want to wipe out the hemp business. Hemp businesses out there, so you're going to join us with that. Otherwise, we're not going to support your bill. Yada, yada, yada. That's what I call voting legislation by negativity. I think it's got to stop along the same line as them constantly working their campaigns in a negative fashion by saying the other group are liars to cover up the fact that they're lying. Campaigning by transferal does not work in my effort. You got to be honest with people, and believe it or not, people are starting to realize what's a lie and what's not. No matter how many times they've been told what is and what isn't, I think people can come to the conclusions themselves as to what people really think. And I'm hoping and you guys,
I don't know.
I have no problem believing that everything you say comes out of your mouth is the truth, because I can't see any possibility otherwise. Because you guys do have a definite air of veracity. Let's put it that way. Now.
But I mean, at the same time, though, Gary, like Tom and Nate have never tried to convince me that Haitians eat cats. You know what I mean? Like they say like it. You're saying that like the people are starting to realize the difference between the truth and lies. But
I tried to do some research on that. I asked Kano if his wife knew about because she's from the DM, right? the DR rather. She's from Dominican Republic. I was asking her, does anybody in the DR worry about their pets going missing in case any Haitians are sneaking across the border and eating their pets? And of course, he responded back that the people in the DR can't afford pets. Of course not. They're all being eaten.
Look, all joking aside, the demonization of immigrant communities remains a major issue in our political speech. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. My son, I want him to have better opportunities. I want him to grow up in a world where if he decides, when he's 21 years old, if he wants to smoke cannabis, he shouldn't have to, go to jail or be saddled with a criminal record. I mean, myself and his grandfather, both have a record for cannabis use that has been a hindrance in life. And, it's not always something that makes any sense, especially when you go back just a little bit farther and cannabis wasn't always illegal. I mean, we now see on the Nixon tapes, even Nixon, when he made his Schedule 1, it was for political purposes. He knew that it didn't have the negative detrimental effects. And then even still, what we see in the modern era is that big pharma wants to utilize and put it in the pill, but they want to keep it illegal for the rest of us in a lot of ways. And they're going to use what they can to influence it. And then, now that cannabis has become a major industry in Florida, you have industry players influencing people. So, when it comes to, Gary, you talk about the truth and people telling the truth. Yes, Nate and Tom are people who have integrity, and those are the type of people we need in
Integrity.
Integrity. Indeed. You want integrity in your weed, and you want integrity in your representative. But, I say all that to say that, we have an endorsement guide that is going to be coming out next week. And I encourage folks, when it does come out, to take a look at it, especially as they're filling out their mail-in ballots, especially as they're, knocking out their early voting, and take it to the polls with them, because SUncoast NORML will not steer you wrong. As an organization, we want to make sure that we put the right people in office, regardless of what political party and political affiliation they have. We've given the opportunity for candidates to fill out our questionnaires, to go a step further and be on the show here, and to go a step further and to be like Tom and become a member, and to go a step further and to be willing to sponsor legislation in Tallahassee. And so these are all the things that people can do and engage in our democracy by doing. And of course, we encourage it 100%. But of course, this is going to be a watershed year when it comes to voting, because you're going to see non-traditional voters turn out in Florida, because there's Amendment 3, because there's Amendment 4, that people want to see in Florida that actually, lives up to the moniker that the governor's given it, that it is a free state, that you're free to choose who you want to love, that you're free to have decisions over your own body, that you're free to decide what's best for your own medical care between you and your doctor, and not the Florida state government.
It's interesting they're being fair, because they decided they're already going to attack women's rights. But they figure as long as they want to be fair about it, they're also going to attack the medical rights of people in the LGBTQ community by saying that they can't have access to transgender care if they want it or need it. It's not a matter of them being convinced by their kindergarten teachers to change sexes, guys. It's not happening. I mean, that is just about as good of a lie as the one that DeSantis came up with a couple weeks ago, saying that this amendment actually says that the average kid in high school can bring up to 20 joints with them to school. Now, the average kid is not going to smoke 20 joints a day that I know of. But the fact is, there's nothing in there that's going to go after kids, period.
Do y'all remember when Grady Judd said you could get 60 joints at 20 grams at that Lakeland decrim hearing? And I responded, sir, I don't know how big of joints you're rolling, but I just don't see it. And the whole crowd erupted in laughter. I got to say the same to DeSantis. 20 joints out of 3 ounces is a lot. Jesus Christ, Ron, how big of a blunts do you smoke?
I actually think that most of his joints probably look like those wrapped toothpicks, like in Cheech and Chong. It happens that particular way. But Amendment 3 is not perfect. We didn't like who sponsored it in the first place, but that's our own particular bailiwick. Just like our bailiwick in regards to the GOP. It's not a matter of who they are. It's a matter of what they say and what they've done. That is really what it comes down to. If you had a GOP who filled out our questionnaire and who agreed with the concepts that we agreed, we would be endorsing them. And we have endorsed some of the GOP. So that is that. We've even endorsed some independents, libertarians, etc. But you need to. We sent you all that link to get that survey out. And that means I sent it out to absolutely everybody who won their primary, or who got their primary skipped or whatever. And these are the people that we're concerning and endorsing. So if you got that letter, if you're a campaign manager, go back and check the emails you've ignored looking at, and go ahead and check that out. So get that survey filled out. And if we have time before the election, we'll get you on the show. If not, you'll get our endorsement, which has a lot of clout to it. We've already gotten, I've been told, that Jackie Kellogg, who was on here for going after, HD 118, she got a couple point bump after she went on our show, because we have a highly intense audience here who's interested in Amendment 3 and all of its replications.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so if that's the hook, that's fine. I'm all for Amendment 3 and what it does, even though I'm not necessarily thrilled about the people who got it started. But obviously, it's going to be in our hands once it passes. It'll be a foundation that we can build on, like home grow. If they're saying other licensed entities, let's make that a home grow entity so that people can go there and grow their own under expert tutelage. And so the Department of Agriculture knows you're smoking stuff that's good for you, and that you're not screwing yourself up by throwing in other things like like the what those folks do in regards to using bad insecticides and things of that sort. If you're going to grow
Gary,
your
I'm
own,
glad you touched on that. Now that we do have a currently standing representative and a future representative on the show, I've been seeing on the social media coming from certain MMTCs, leak photos of showing mold, major pest, and they're still pushing these crops on the shelves. I firmly believe that if we had home grow and boutique growers, that people could, essentially when there is a crop failure for one of these major corporations, they could source it to these boutique growers. They could make sure that they have a variety of products on the shelves and not have to worry about whether or not their medicine is been tainted. And so, I just wanted to pass the mic here to Nate to close out because we are coming to the top of the hour. But before we left, I did think it was a major point that home grow isn't just about people having the right to grow it at home. It's also a public safety issue in a lot of ways when the industry itself fails. And I think that it's important that the people have quality and safe access to their medicine. So, Nate, we're going to give you the mic to close out because I know you got plenty of doors to knock, and tell the folks why they should vote for you and why you want to be the representative in District 37.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Canna. And I think you made such a fantastic point. I mean, home grow is a fail-safe measure. I mean, we've seen that there are market failures. It happens constantly. And it's really important that, we as individuals can take it into our own hands to make sure that, those market failures don't impact us or our families or our friends or our neighbors. And I am Nate Douglas, and I am your Democratic nominee for Florida State House District 37. And I'm running to represent us in Tallahassee to the best of my ability and to give us much better representation than the one we have right now. I mean, we currently have a representative in my seat who does not support this type of legislation whatsoever. We have a representative who voted for a $1 billion bailout for large insurance companies. We have a representative who, defunds public education to the tune of $4 billion and shifts that funding to school voucher programs. I mean, if we have a representative like this, imagine what this representative would do when it comes to the legalization of adult use recreational cannabis. This is someone that we can't trust. It's someone who didn't give us her views on abortion back in 2022, and then she turned around and voted for a 6-week abortion ban. And she has recreational marijuana this election cycle. If we reelect her, it's the same exact type of extremism. So again, my website's nateforflorida.com. There's a magical green button that says donate. That's always extremely helpful to getting us elected. These cost a lot of money, and they're spending $1.3 million just to defeat me right now, and they're increasing that budget soon too. So, we need to make sure we really win this seat. We take it home, we pass Amendment 3, and we get the right folks to implement it.
and of course, bring back the arts and culture money to your neighborhood.
Absolutely, always.
In deference to Carlos, who's not here right now, but he did so much to bring more money to the arts in that area. And now he's going to be in the Senate, so now you can work with both sides. That should be fun.
Absolutely.
Nate, I did see a comment. They say you look like a young Lenny Kravitz.
That's really funny. Thank you.
I honestly don't see it, Nate. Sorry.
What's a Lenny Kravitz? Okay, Tom, you've already won your seat, right?
Yep. I won it in January in this special election, and I'm up for re-election now for the full terms starting this November the 5th.
All right, so you are on the ballot for November the 5th. Do you have any opponents?
Oh, I do. I have a Republican opponent, the same opponent that I faced this past January when we flipped the seat. And so I'm confident as long as voters get out and vote that we'll win.
So you've already got your feet wet in the legislature, and you can continue to do the things you started working on last session, which is always good because, face it, guys, a lot of people start things at the end of the last session only to actually start them up good, fresh on the next session. That's just the way it is towards the end, where everything else starts to fall and all the soldiers start to hit the ground as far as bills are concerned. So we're looking forward to getting you involved in that, Tom. Did you have a stump speech for your district for this coming election?
Well, since I'm on here, I'll just say this. So I served in uniform for 20 years, and I believe in the nation's promise of freedom for everybody. So Amendment 3 brings us one step closer, and so that's Amendment 3 will give Florida adults the same freedoms now enjoyed by a majority of Americans. I don't know how many states we're up to. I'd have to ask Chris. I think maybe 15 or 20 states now with the majority of the population, the freedom to safely and legally possess small amounts of marijuana. And that's why I support Amendment 3.
Now, I'm just going to throw it out there because Chris knows about this. The biggest market in the country is coming from the biggest state, California. And yet their governor this last week signed a bill to make all of the hemp products illegal, something that this state tried to do, and they failed only because of the fact that our governor vetoed it at the last minute. And what a surprise, he got a whole bunch of campaign contributions for him for doing that. So I don't know what exactly his motivation was. Yes, I do. But I should be assured, guys, that bill is going to come home to rest. And if you want to really get them, call it the Newsom bill. That'll really screw them up.
I love it. By the way, I voted against that bill when it came before us in committee, and I voted against it on the floor. And the sponsor of that bill,
yes, you did, Tom.
Representative Gregory, who sponsored that bill, left the House early. Another Republican that leaves early to take another position. So
Yeah,
that
he's
seems
like
to be a pattern.
running a school now.
Be a pattern. So
is he like selling hot dogs on the street now, or what?
No, he's not selling hot dogs.
He's running a school or something now,
yeah,
right?
He was appointed the third state rep to be appointed to a presidency of a state-run university or college.
I'm sure that'll go just as well as it did for Ben Sass and everybody else that they put in office last time.
There's a good example right there, isn't it? There you go. Hey, folks, I really appreciated you guys having me back on again. And as I said before, Chris is the one that educated me originally on this and brought me to the realization of how important that medical marijuana and now adult use marijuana can be for our community. It's going to bring tax dollars. It's going to bring safety. And it's going to bring freedom. So get out and vote for Amendment 3.
And one more thing I want to mention before you go, because I know you've got a canvas as well. You are a card-carrying member of SUncoast NORML, are you not?
I am. I'm a paid card-carrying member. Absolutely.
Yes, you are.
You got to support.
Just so you know, QR code over there. And do we have the news today?
Indeed. Let's go ahead. Tom, you good luck knocking on doors today. And Carlos, let's run the news.
Thanks, guys.
Well, kicking off at the top of the news hour, FBI says nearly 1/4 of all drug-related arrests are for marijuana possessions. Law enforcement officials made well over 200,000 arrests for marijuana-related violations in 2023, according to data compiled by the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation and posted it on its Crime Data Explorer website. According to online databases, which was updated just this week with data for the year 2023, police made at least 217,150 arrests for marijuana violations last year. This is a total this total is a slight decline from 2022, where the agency reported 227,108 total marijuana arrests. Of those charged with violating marijuana laws in 2023, 84%, that's 200,306 people, were charged with possession only. However, this total is an underestimate because some law enforcement agencies fail to report their data to the FBI, Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And for example, in 2022, 17% of agencies representing 25% of the total U.S. population failed to report crime data to the FBI. For 2023, the agency reported that they received data from local agencies representing over 90% of the U.S. population. In addition, the FBI identified another 53,490 arrests in 2023 for unspecified drug abuse violations. It's not clear what percentage of any of these were for marijuana. In all, some 25% of all specified drug-related arrests reported to the FBI in 2023 were for cannabis-related violations. Now, marijuana arrests peaked in the United States in 2007 when police made over 870,000 marijuana-related arrests, and there are still people sitting in jail to this day from that high point. At that time, just under half 48% of all drug-related arrests in the United States were for marijuana-related violations. The FBI changed the way they collected and reported crime data in 2021, making it difficult to compare more recent data sets with those of prior years. So in addition to the incomplete FBI data, the annual data on federal marijuana arrests and seizures by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration and its partners has not been provided for 2023. And that data is typically published by the DEA in the spring of the following year. So, we have a DEA committee hearing coming up on December 2nd on the nature of cannabis's schedule. And NORML has submitted, I was on the committee for National NORML that submitted its application to testify. It remains to be seen who the DEA is going to select, but I do want folks to know that NORML was there when we had a DEA administrative law judge back in the 80s, rule on its scheduling. And back in the 80s, the DEA administrative law judge said cannabis is therapeutically safe and shouldn't be in Schedule 1, and the DA ignored it all for all those years. So again, elections have consequences, and who is both in the White House and who's in your legislature and of course in the judicial branch is all going to make a big impact on how these laws are shaped and whether or not these agencies run amok over the American people. Now, shifting from the arrest side of things, let's talk about the money side. An analysis showed that states have generated nearly $9 billion in cannabis-related tax revenues since 2021. It came out to $8.7 billion in total since 2021 of calculations compiled by the federal government. And the analysis includes the tax revenue estimates through the second quarter of this year. However, the report's authors acknowledge that not all states provided up-to-date data, meaning that the total amount of state taxes collected during this period is probably much higher than the $8.7 billion. It's definitely probably above the $9 billion mark. According to the analysis, California collected $156 million in cannabis taxes during that reporting period, followed by Michigan, which collected $75 million, Illinois $72 million, Colorado $61 million, Massachusetts $50 million, and Arizona $45 million. Prior analysis published earlier this year by our friends at the Marijuana Policy Project reported that retail sales of adult use cannabis products have generated more than $20 billion in state tax revenues since 2014, when the first states became legal for adult use, namely Colorado and Washington State. Now, looking at a recent study that's currently out of the journal JAMA Network, cannabis access laws are actually associated with reduced use of benzodiazepines. And the adoption of state laws regarding marijuana for either medical or adult use do show drastic declines in benzodiazepine prescriptions. Researchers affiliated with the Georgia Institute of Technology and the University of Georgia assessed the relationship between legalization laws and the dispensing of psychotropic medications used to treat mental health disorders. Both medical and recreational cannabis policies were consistently associated with a reduction in benzodiazepine dispensing. Investigators determined that specifically the implementation of medical cannabis laws was associated with a 12.4% reduction in the prescription fill rate per 10,000 patients, while adult use legalization was associated with a 15.2% reduction rate. Other studies assessing patients' use of prescription medications following their initiation of medical cannabis have similarly reported decreases in the use of benzodiazepines. Look, all in all, we know that cannabis helps as an anti-anxiety med, and all this is just showing that the official research is there. So when you hear politicians say we need more research, all they need to do is either read the NORML news here or go on to normal.org and check out our weekly releases that are coming from American medical journals, and can clearly see that great universities, in our university systems, whether public or private, all across the world, are producing studies on the effects of medical cannabis. And so there is some opportunity here to really help people with passage of Amendment 3, of seeing less and less people being stuck with the negative side effects, and of course the addiction that can sometimes come with prescription psychotropic medication. Now, I wanted, before we finish up the news, one last news story that I think is relevant. We reported recently that the Tennessee Supreme Court ruled that you essentially can still have a drug dog come sniff your car and toss your car for cannabis scent, especially with the advent of hemp products, and you having to prove, that your cannabis is hemp, so you don't essentially go to jail and such. But recently, just this past week, the Illinois Supreme Court said marijuana odor is not probable cause for a vehicle search. And justices on the Illinois Supreme Court have ruled that a police officer may not conduct a warrantless search of a motor vehicle based solely upon the smell of burnt marijuana emanating from the vehicle. Justices opine that the odor of cannabis lacks a clear and direct enough connection to illegal activity to make it probable that a crime has been recently committed or is being committed, because the possession and use of marijuana is legal in that state. They further acknowledge that the defendant in the case exhibited no signs of marijuana-induced impairment, and that the arresting officer failed to identify either cannabis or cannabis paraphernalia in plain view. They concluded that we hold the odor of burnt cannabis is a fact that should be considered when determining whether police have probable cause to search a vehicle, but the odor of burnt cannabis standing alone without other inculpatory facts does not provide probable cause to search a vehicle. Now, this had to be addressed via legislation in states like Maryland and Virginia. And so maybe that's something that we should look at here in Florida, is, of course, seeing that, rather than making people have to sue and the Florida Supreme Court deal with it, that we could ask our legislative allies to essentially just go ahead and take that off the table. Make it easy for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. The smell of cannabis shouldn't be a reason that you get a drug dog on your car, or that your car gets tossed, without a more extenuating circumstances. So, and that's the normal news for this week. We'll see you next week.
All right. Now, even more importantly, our governor has said that the smell of marijuana is enough to tank the bill, because he feels that the smell of marijuana is, because he's so pervading, that it's going to destroy the entire state. Now, Carlos and I have been working on an idea, and that is that if you walk into his shop and you are becoming a SUncoast NORML member, you get a chance to smell from 2 different vials, one of which is going to have terpenes in it, so you'll know what cannabis smells like on the street. The other one is going to have a mixture of beer and faux urine, or possibly real. And if you can tell which one is more palatable, you get 10% off over at Chillum. Now, doesn't that sound like a good idea?
Sounds like a great idea.
I mean, seriously, I have smelled Ebor in the morning before they cleaned it up, and it's not pretty. Just like for those people who've been to New Orleans and they know what Canal Street smells like in the morning after all the crowds have left, that smell of beer and urine, it just kind of like sticks with you.
Hey,
I'd
Gary,
rather have the other one all the time.
I talked a little bit earlier about the Doobie Act and how it allow, essentially, if passed, people would pass marijuana use to, still get federal security clearance and federal jobs. For all those listening, our governor, or former governor and current U.S. Senator, Rick Scott, sits on that committee that heard the bill, and he voted no against it. So if you ever needed a reason to toss Rick Scott's ass out of office, American voters, this is definitely an opportunity for you to get out there and vote. And Debbie Mercursa Powell is an endorsed candidate by SUncoast NORML, and she is running against Rick Scott this election. So get out there and vote for Debbie and toss Rick Scott ass clear out of office, because clearly he doesn't want any of our veterans who need medical marijuana to have federal jobs, and he definitely doesn't want you as a former pothead or maybe current cannabis user to have a federal job either. And frankly, I think if that's the case, then he shouldn't be having a federal job.
Yeah, I think if Rich Scott wins, like, that would be true testament to we should just give up on Florida. I mean, that guy was governor for 2 terms. destroyed so much shit. Like, I mean, you can't really compare him to DeSantis, but remember how bad we
I
used to think
can.
he was
When
before
my
DeSantis
dad was
came
going
around?
through terminal dementia,
Yeah.
Rick Scott line item vetoed the program for people like my dad in Hillsborough County. He cut the funding on it, tossing hundreds of families to try to figure out their loved ones suffering from this debilitating terminal illness, what they're going to do. I mean, I recall missing an exam in my master's program because I was late because I needed to change my dad's diapers. These are the issues that really affect people. And, we talk about the insurance crisis and a lot of ways they're throwing it on DeSantis, but Rick Scott had 8 years to try and fix it. And he did jack shit to fix it.
No, Rick Scott did a lot of damage to this program as well, because it was under his watch that we got the whole medical program we currently have right now. And he put enough cronies in there to screw up the system to make it where it is today. It's not totally functional as a medical system. I'm sorry. It's a quasi-medical system. It doesn't totally work. It can be fixed. We're still trying to fix it. But Rick Scott was one of the main influences to make sure it didn't work, because he figured if it didn't work, we would all reject it. And if you want to know if you got a clear choice between Rick Scott and Debbie Mercasel Powell, go to the archives we have here at the rotation and listen to her when she was on the show at that point in time. She made some very, very salient points, not only in regards to Amendment 3, but Amendment 4 and immigration and things of that sort. So feel free to check it out.
I like her.
Yeah, if you're watching today, it's your first time watching, hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook. But yeah, you can see past episodes either on our Facebook page, or you can go to our YouTube and look at the past episodes. We have an episode there with members of Congress. Like we said, we've had both Eleanor Holmes Norton and Nancy Mace, people of both political parties on this show, advocates of reform, and you get to hear some uncut and clear views that are not scripted. And I think that's important too, is that oftentimes when candidates come on this show, they like to keep it real. And I think that is the, as you put it, Gary, the rotation bump that folks are seeing in their own campaigns. Because here we like to keep it fast, we like to keep it dirty with the jokes, with the commentary, and we're free speech advocates all the way around.
And our script is right in here.
I shared Debbie's episode in the comments just now. Yeah, and I just hope we can get over this. I think we talk a lot about how it's not a partisan issue, but it truly is. We can legalize marijuana in the state with support for both sides, but for us to have a good system, we need to vote for the right people. So thank you too for all you. I'm not doing shit about it, but thank you too for putting that questionnaire together and putting the extra work for our followers and our members
and we're taking the shows and we're making them into bite-sized bits for you too, because I know that an hour is a long time to watch unless you're truly into couch, so to speak. So we do have these little snippets where we talk about what topics we've brought up. We did it for a while. We stopped because Carlos was totally inundated with running 2 stores. He is an entrepreneur. He is working hard like everybody else is who's an entrepreneur, and he deserves to have a business. So if you mess with the damn hemp business guys, you have us to talk to, because we're gonna beat your ass.
Thank you for saying that, Gary.
But we are gonna get back to that and get more snippets. So if you do come on the show, we will have those snippets out there for you guys to go ahead and publicize your campaign. It doesn't make a difference whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. If you come on the show and you have something to say, I think people want to hear it, and right here is the place where they can hear it.
I think, if anything, we're more excited to find Republicans that support the common sense policy than anything. Like, that's fucking gold. If we find a Republican in the legislature that believes in free market cannabis, that believes that we should be able to grow at home, that we like. I just answered a Snapchat from a hemp entrepreneur buddy of mine who's like, have we been able to find a Republican in the Senate that's willing to support this the right way? And it's no. That's no.
It's give and take. It's like, oh, you get one that's for adult use, but then they want to ban public smoking.
Yeah.
It's like, where's the freedom? The other night I was I spoke at the Boston Freedom Rally last weekend, and then on the way back home, we stopped in New York City, and it was just amazing that I could have dinner, right there on the sidewalk with my family. Take a few steps away, still be able to see my mom and my kid within the earshot, and be able to legally, smoke a joint. And not be harassed, because in the city of New York, anywhere you can smoke a cigarette, you can smoke a J.
Yeah,
I'll grant you their
Gruders
system
would-
of stores is not perfect. They got a lot of issues in regards to the program in New York, but they
You
got
know,
some things right.
Gruders, Joe Gruders, made a big step by supporting Amendment 3. I think that we should acknowledge that is a big step for somebody in that position to make. But to really care about this issue, I'm sorry, you have to do more than show up and do a commercial with the opponent. You have to support laws that are going to implement this properly,
And
and just can't find it.
Chris Brady, who wrote some fantastic comments on the right on the right side, love some of them, said True Leave is not against home grow. By the way, okay, that is what they say. But the fact is, when they had a chance to support a home grow petition, they balked. And a good friend of the show, Mo Barnhart, was working on that very, very hard, and the amount of support that she got from them was substantial. That is one of the reasons that petition never got there. It could have gone there as a separate petition, but it was not given the support, and I don't think they're going to support it going forward.
Do you think that they supported Regulate Florida, knowing that home grow was going to make the Senate knock it out?
I think that major corporations will support efforts on face value for the nonprofit advocacy sector, for the sake of greenwashing their corporate interests. We see it all the time, right? You see Georgia Pacific lumber support a nonprofit for Save the Trees.
I get it. That's why True Leave gives money to politicians that don't support gay rights, and then and then go and be in a primary. That's why they do stuff like that. Okay, I get it.
You see it all the time in major corporations. It's just it's cost of doing business in a lot of ways. It's like, oh well, we have a brand ambassador for this minority community, and then it's like, yeah, but your products are literally killing the consumers. You see it with other major brands, and I don't want to name other major brands because we don't have enough money to get sued by Coca-Cola and Pepsi
or Wrigley. Anybody else?
No.
Now, one question I did want to ask the guys today, I never got a chance to do it, is do you think that the MMTC industry in the state of Florida could use a solid union standpoint? Because here we're talking about a lot of workers between the MMTCs and even the hemp industry that could use some protections that unions often afford. And oftentimes, if they get it right, the price factor does not affect the consumer. What it does affect is the livelihoods of those people who work for those organizations, so they know that they're living in safe conditions, and so they're getting the money to live on. Because a lot of times that doesn't happen, and in fact, a lot of times they do hire undocumented visitors to this state.
Well, I can tell you, Cano's answer is going to be yes.
Well, I'll tell you this much: I have beef with what you just said, Gary, because not for you, but the fact that these corporations, in some ways, will have undocumented workers working for them. And those undocumented, or rather legal documented immigrants, but they don't realize is that because of the Schedule I nature of cannabis, they're not actually getting any credit for working here when they work for a medical marijuana company. So if you're a farm worker on a farm worker visa and you're working for a major MMTC in their grow facilities, understand that at the federal level, you're not going to get work credit for what you're doing with that company, and it could cause you to possibly get deported. So there's that. The second thing is that the conditions of growing in the state of Florida, indoors, outdoors, either way, it's hot and it's humid. And we just saw the DeSantis administration preempt a heat bill that was passed, by local governments in South Florida for workers. So, it's not like the Florida GOP or Ron DeSantis give a shit if you fall out from a heat stroke. So, yes, Gary, I firmly believe that unionizing the workforce will do a lot of good. What we did see is companies like TrueLeave had some workers unionized in Massachusetts, and they pulled out of that state entirely. You do see people trying to run from it, but a union workplace does make for happier workers. It does make for the folks working there to maintain some type of longevity. And all in all, it gives people a stake in how the companies run. And Carlos, I'm not trying to create a revolt among your own work staff and wanting to unionize on you here, but I always say this: the places that get unions are the ones that deserve them. So if you're a shitty boss and you create a shitty work environment, your employees will revolt and unionize on you. Carlos, on the other hand, happens to be a very nice guy, so I can see why his employees haven't taken to burning him at the stake yet.
Yeah,
I did find that when he does shave his beard, he tends to be meaner.
I think I'm just mean to you, Gary. I think the union that the medical marijuana treatment centers here in Florida need are like an old school mafia union, like Jimmy Hoffa style. Like, I think the only thing that can save Florida cannabis is if Kim Rivers is scared of car bombs.
Oh,
Jimmy Hoffa still supporting the New Jersey Turnpike after all these years.
Well, ironically, there are 3 major unions in this country that have started to tackle unionizing the cannabis industry. One of them is Jimmy Hoffa's former union, the Teamsters. So if you're a union worker, if you're a worker at TrueLeave and you want to start a union, hit those Teamsters up. There are 2 other major unions in this country that have worked to unionize cannabis workers. One is the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, UFCW, and the others is my own union, the Service Employees International Union, SEIU. So reach out, see, if you're a worker, whether at Fluent or TrueLeave or CureLeaf or any of those other, Vitacan, any of the other places that we're seeing in Florida, and you have issues in your workplace, reach out to one of the big 3 unions who are unionizing cannabis workers and see what they can do to get you and your colleagues started. Building a union is about you and your fellow workers coming together and having a stake at the table with management on equal footing. It's not some big third party going to come in and tell you how you're going to run your workplace. It's you all deciding what's best for you. And
does NORML have a policy in regards to union membership for the cannabis industry?
There's no formal policy against it. We are based on focused on consumer advocacy, as we always been since our inception. The goal at NORML is to get authority to stop arresting cannabis smokers and making sure that every responsible cannabis user has safe, affordable, and quality access. And that's going to continue to be our mission. And part of that mission, when I say about safe and affordable access, having a unionized workforce can make all the difference in that.
And I've been besieged by folks again this week saying that NORML is out there for power, influence, and money. I don't see that. Even yes, Nikki Fried is a board member for National NORML. She's not making a ton of money on this. In fact, board members don't get paid. The rank and file, as far as our political director, that kind of stuff, in National NORML, they do get paid, but not a hell of a lot. I'll tell you that. And as far as power is concerned, the power is actually in your guys' hands. We work with you guys to give you the power to access your legislators and make a change in regards to all these rules and regulations. Now, I know we got to get going here, but I did want to put out one more thing. And Carlos tends to laugh when I say this, but I have a bill. And this particular bill also involves the topic we're talking about right now. And that is the fact that there is still a federal bill from the Fair Labor Act of 1938 that allows people with disabilities and agricultural workers to get paid less than minimum wage because of a thing called Chapter 14 special certificates, which means that an employer can apply for this and therefore pay his employees less than minimum wage. That means if this is an agricultural product, agricultural workers for the MMTCs can get paid less than minimum wage. Right now, we have folks who are blind, who have other disabilities, who are getting paid $1 or so an hour for where they're working on. We're trying to resolve that. My wife and I are working on a bill right now, which we're going to bring to the speaker and get rid of those special certificates for the people who are disabled or have a disabling condition, which is like anybody who has a medical cannabis card, and also the agricultural workers, because they deserve a life too, provided they are documented legally.
You got anything else for me, Gerber?
That is it. I've got to go and get rid of more Spanish moss off the roof so it doesn't clog the gutters. And you guys stay safe. We will see you next Sunday with more special guests. Carlos, I think, will be at a meeting in DC for NORML.
I think Jano will. I'll be.
That's what I said. We will be here. We will be here with two fabulous guests running for state senate.